Hi, everybody. My name is Adam B. Levine. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Let's Talk Bitcoin show, which is a twice-weekly show about the ideas, people, and projects building the digital economy and the future of money, as I like to say. We've heard some interesting talk about the 2.0 side of things, and this panel really, I think, is what it's all about, is the 2.0 side of things. So we have some great panelists up here representing three projects that are similar in a lot of ways, but very different also. Vitalik Buterin, everybody's going to introduce themselves. Vitalik Buterin is the founder of Ethereum and has been in the space for quite a while. Can you tell us your story of kind of getting in?
Yeah, so first time I joined the Bitcoin community was in 2011. So I know there's this really cool currency on the internet. How do I get into it? And so I found a guy on the forums. His name was Kiba. He was trying to set up this Bitcoin blog, and he was paying people 5 Bitcoins an article, which was $4 back then. And that's what I did. First job I ever had. Average salary about $1.50 an hour. Earned 20 Bitcoins, spent 8.5 of them on a T-shirt. So eventually the guy's money ran out, and so I managed to salvage the operation for a while by coming up with this interesting new business model where I would write 2 articles a week, then I would put up the first paragraph of each one on a forum, and with a Bitcoin address, I would say, these articles are held for ransom. If the community dumps 4.5 BTC into this address, then I will release the rest of the articles. And it actually worked. It actually paid me maybe something like $6 an hour for about 2 months. So then from there, I moved on to Bitcoin Magazine, started doing development. 9 months ago, quit university to go Bitcoin full-time, traveled around the world to US, Spain, Amsterdam, Israel, and then got really interested in this whole Bitcoin 2.0 space, and that's basically where Ethereum came out of.
And that one of those articles was actually the first Bitcoin transaction that I made, was actually trying to get one of those articles. I don't remember what one it was, but getting one to try to release from ransom. So, you had a huge impact on me choosing to get into Bitcoin media. David Johnston comes from more of an entrepreneurial background, but has really jumped into the space and has probably more projects individually than me and certainly just about everybody else in the space. Why Bitcoin? Why this technology?
So when I think about new trends, I really look at the fundamentals. And in 2012, when I first found out about Bitcoin, it really captured me from an economic perspective. I like the idea of a currency that can't artificially be debased. And so that struck a chord with me really early on, but quickly you go through that Bitcoin newbie learning curve where you realize it's not just a currency, it's this vast payment network that lets me send transactions across the network. And then you realize it's also the technology underneath. The blockchain technology is really where the exciting stuff is. And then you realize we can use this technology and apply it to other areas, and that was sort of the light bulb moment for me. So got heavy involved in Bitcoin in 2012, started the BitAngels with Sam Yilmaz, Michael Turpin, and others at the San Jose conference last year in 2013. Now I've got about 400 members for the BitAngels, and we've tried to invest in all sorts of different applications, but what's really captured me the last 6 or 9 months has been these decentralized applications. Ended up writing the white paper, and now I've got to focus entirely on decentralized applications. So I ended up investing early on in Mastercoin and was asked to be one of the volunteer board of directors for the Mastercoin Foundation. And so that's how I've gotten really heavily into it.
How long did it take you to go from being interested primarily for the appreciation of the price of the unit and being more interested in the ecosystem? Was there a gap there?
It was a pretty quick transition, probably 2-3 weeks of nerding out on this.
So you just got it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, you go read the white paper, you go up the learning curve, and after talking with a lot of smart people, you wrap your head around it.
Thank you. Brian Snyder is, Brian Snyder's here representing Next, and Next is kind of an interesting beast that I've been watching for the last, 2 or 3 months. I like to call it kind of like a beast that has no head but has 1,000 arms, so it's really difficult to organize, but if you ever could get it organized, then it probably has a lot of ability, in there. So you've described yourself to me as an ambassador who's actually relatively new to Bitcoin. Can you kind of describe your journey?
My journey is a long journey to get here. I graduated from Washington State University in 2004, and in between that time and now, I've seen credit card accounts get hacked. I've seen actual identities get hacked. And it's come to the realization that the central networks are not being secured adequately to protect people's interests, whether it's money or their identification or even their ability to transact money. And so it's an honor to be here and to be an ambassador for NXT or Next. And I was asked a couple times last night if I was the creator of, and no, I am not BC Next or Satoshi Nakamoto, but we all are.
Okay.
So we've heard this, all these questions are basically for everyone, one after the other. We've heard prior panelists kind of flatly say that now is not really the time for 2.0 development, and that we should be more focused on, kind of applications that seem to interface cryptocurrency to legacy currencies like the dollar or the yen or things like that. And then on the other hand, I think that the applications that you're working with kind of are more focused around applications that are cryptography to cryptography and don't necessarily interface so much with the space. Is that fair to say? And what do you think about the idea that we should be waiting to develop these 2.0 applications until Bitcoin is ready?
I mean, I personally think the 2.0 stuff is really by far the most interesting part of the cryptocurrency scene in general. I mean, okay, you can send money instantly from A to B. Congrats, There's a whole bunch of services that let you do that in China. It's sure Bitcoin is an improvement in a lot of ways, but that by itself isn't really enough. I don't think enough of an improvement to get the entire world excited and get the entire world to switch over onto the cryptographic ecosystem. I think the reason why people want cryptocurrencies and people want crypto protocols is precisely because of some of these 2.0 smart contracts and decentralized incentivized protocol ideas. Like, that's the sort of thing that you absolutely cannot do with traditional finance, no matter how hard you try.
Right. So I think a good analogy is the early days of the internet. Right? Early days of the internet, email was the killer app. All of a sudden, I can instantly send a message to anybody on Earth. It hardly costs anything, which is a great analogy to Bitcoin and now being able to send money. But just sort of only focusing on email doesn't make sense for mass adoption. What got people excited about the internet was now there are all these different uses and websites that popped up that were relevant to them. And so I think as we see more and more projects using the underlying Bitcoin technology that are doing things other than payment and other than currency, now I care, right? As an end user, I'm maybe not a merchant, and so I don't see all the advantages, or I don't buy a lot of stuff online, but if I use Dropbox today and you told me that there was an alternative version that was 10 times less in cost, all of a sudden I have a reason to adopt this new technology and use it. And I may not even understand that I'm using that technology, but I'll be leveraging those same protocols in order to accomplish that. That's why I keep saying, and I really believe this, in 5 or 6 years, I think you'll have 1 billion people using Bitcoin, and most of them won't realize they're using it. Any more than most people consciously think of the fact that they are using HTTP when they go onto their social media or go onto a search engine.
The recent centralized exchange failures highlight the need for cryptocurrency 2.0 systems, i.e. decentralized exchanges, to allow the cryptographic community to trade in a trustless fashion, to where the transactions are signed locally and then sent through a set of automated transactions that represent a gateway. And so these gateways can exist on top of the next asset exchange and can provide an totally decentralized method for trading cryptographic pairs.
So, founders and fundraising. Again, everybody here is kind of on different places within the time frame, and everybody has a different story. Let's start with Brian about NXT. Can you tell us about what you think about founders? Are founders an advantage or are they a disadvantage? Is fundraising an advantage or is it a disadvantage?
So BC Next collected 21 Bitcoins to generate the Genesis block for Next, and that Genesis block created 1 billion NXT, which is a fixed amount. There will be no more than that. It's similar to the 21 million number for Bitcoin. And far as funding and founders go,
I guess what I mean is...
It's said by the creator of Next that a world with the money can never be perfect. And so some people will always have misgivings about any system. There will always be inequalities in any system. And in the initial bootstrapping phases of a cryptocurrency ecosystem, there must be people who have stake, who have an incentive to continue the network success and to continue the security of the network.
Do you view that 21 Bitcoin that was raised as a fundraising, or was it something else?
I suppose you could call it a fundraiser.
Okay.
So I think what we're seeing is different best practices emerge here. People have certain expectations based on how Bitcoin has been built, that whatever system you choose, it's going to be transparent. People are going to be able to participate on the process at an equal basis, and that it'll be based on open source. And you have these best practice expectations, and I think if you go along those and you make a best effort with your protocol and the way that you issue your tokens for these applications, then the community will get on board. If you do things like try to keep things proprietary, or you're not transparent about the process, or people aren't able to participate on an equal and fair basis, then there's a lot more skepticism. And I think those best practices are really starting to emerge.
Yeah, definitely fairness and this whole issue of does the protocol privilege certain people is something that people talk about quite a lot. I think one of the problems here is that there definitely are a lot of people in some of the earlier Bitcoin community, whether it's the more sort of market libertarian or open source culture, or a combination of both, is that there's a lot of emphasis in those kinds of schools on systems that are sort of technically fair, that don't sort of explicitly privilege specific people or specific institutions, but more from an entrepreneurial standpoint, the thing that you need to understand is that really Bitcoin itself is not really all that egalitarian. Like, sure, there's nothing in the Bitcoin code that says like Satoshi Nakamoto and Hal Finney are entitled to a pre-mine of 30,000 BTC. But the reality is, I, for example, never had a chance to even do anything with Bitcoin in 2009 or 2010. I've never even heard of it. So it's not really a matter of it's not really a matter of whether the system is sort of technically fair. It's more a matter of whether it's actually fair, whether the process is widely distributed, whether it's designed in such a way that anyone can participate, like what the distribution of the currency supply is. Obviously, if like one particular entity has 40% of it, that's a bad thing. Also, once again, is there transparency? So, and a lot of these different fundraising methods, David actually made this point to me a few months ago, are even more fair than just something that's purely mining based. Because, if you have something like Bitcoin and it's a purely mining-based currency, in order to mine it now, you still need money. You need money to buy an ASIC, or you need $5 million of capital to make an ASIC company. I mean, that's where the real money is, right? So, whereas if you have something like a fundraiser, then anyone who has any money can participate. So it's a matter of coming up with a mechanism where lots of different diverse constituencies can participate in different ways.
Right, and I think that's the other best practice emerging is, if you're not doing something that requires hashing power, then why only reward miners? So we are now having applications that don't necessarily need hashing power, that maybe are built on Ethereum or on top of Bitcoin. And what they need to do is incentivize other user groups. So I and Vitalik talked about this early on, is you have developers that you need to incentivize to add to the open source code. You have people you want to participate in the crowd sale when you initially distribute the tokens that want to support this financially. And I think ought to be the largest pool is whatever user behavior you need in order for this system to work, that ought to be what you reward in the biggest way. And so let's take a particular example. Storage won the recent hackathon in Austin, put up $1 million, the BitAngels, for the hackathon there. They took first place. And it's a system that rewards people for adding storage, computer storage, to a cloud. And that's the majority of how their tokens will be distributed, for everybody setting up these nodes that compensate people and people who are competing to provide this storage to the network. But you also have a pool for developers that contribute to the open source, and you also have a pool for the initial crowd sale. And so that's sort of the different constituents that you were talking about. That's what we really see emerging.
Well, so let's talk about use cases. I mean, these 2.0 technologies are, sort of, it's a bit of an ethereal concept, no pun intended. So what are some early use cases that you see coming out on your platform?
Okay. One thing that people are very excited about is this decentralized Dropbox idea. So, you have these systems where if you have a 100 gigabyte file, you can upload it, they store it for you. But why can't that be a cloud, as in an actual decentralized cloud? So, you upload a file, anyone can download it, and then there's a contract which automatically pays out money to, or whatever kind of tokens, to whoever manages to submit a cryptographic proof that they still have the file. Like the reason why it's exciting is, as we said at the last Texas conference, Dropbox has a markup of something like 100x. So if you can drop that down even 10x, potentially got a massive improvement there. And on the seller side, you can earn money by renting out your hard drive. That's a powerful message.
The cool thing is that people have been working on this for a while. One of my favorite projects in that space is MadeSafe, is doing the back end for what storage is doing on the front end. And they've thought through a lot of those hard problems around how do you do fully decentralized storage, encrypt it end-to-end, make it so there's no central point of failure. So, yeah, I think projects like that are going to be a really easy to understand use case for most people, because people are starting to get used to the idea of the share economy. They're used to Airbnb and be able to earn extra income by renting out their house, or now there are all these car sharing apps that let people earn extra income doing that. Why not rent out extra storage space sitting on a 3 terabyte hard drive sitting on your desk? And so I think it's sort of a natural extension of that people will understand and really be able to use every day.
One of the interesting use cases of NXT is fraud prevention. With regular, for example, the example being used here is the exchange DGEX, which is run by Graviton of the NXT community. And in a situation where a fraudulent request was made from an account, the administrator, Gravitron, was able to contact the initial funding owner, the real owner of the account, and seek the authentication token from within inside the NXT account. And so, given that the request was made from some other account completely, the request to provide the token was not able to be completed, and so the withdrawal was not processed.
So what is it about the NXT that allowed that to happen where it wouldn't in Bitcoin?
There's within the NXT client a token authentication feature where you can plug in a website and your NXT account number, and it feeds out a cryptographic hash that can only be unlocked by the other person.
This is Chris Joseph bringing you news on Next, the first true second-generation cryptocurrency for April 5th, 2014. It had to happen eventually. Next features a coin supply of 1 billion indivisible coins, and at the time of its creation, nobody was concerned about this indivisibility because the supply was so large. But with the development of the decentralized asset exchange, questions have arisen. How can we trade other divisible assets against Next if Next is indivisible? This week marks the debut of what we're calling the Quant, the Next equivalent of the Bitcoin Satoshi. A new version of the Next software running only on the testnet adds divisibility for Next up to 8 decimal places, which matches most other cryptos. The goal is to make it easy to trade Next against other currencies on the asset exchange. Once this new coin divisibility feature has been fully tested, it will be deployed on the production Next network. For more general information on Next, head to nextcrypto.org or mynxt.org. And stay tuned for more news on Next in the next Let's Talk Bitcoin broadcast.